Hey, I'm Dre. Let's talk about eyebrow piercing anatomy today. My credentials are, I am a piercer in Amsterdam. I've been doing this for 4.5 years. My partner has had 2 rejected eyebrow piercings, even though I told them not to get it again, and they did it anyways, but it's okay, I'm not bitter. I've also had the piercing for 6 weeks. It did not work out well, but it was more like my lifestyle, so we can talk about that later. Anyways, let's get to the video. First things first, the most telling thing about a piercing is the style of jewelry that you're going to use. The jewelry tells you a lot more about the function of the piercing than you think it does. The eyebrow is kind of like a ridge. Your piercing sites aren't like directly on top of each other like this. Your anatomy kind of looks like this, so you're going to need something that sticks out in this direction and this direction. That's why we use the curved barbell or the banana barbell, because it's shaped like a banana. It works perfectly for the anatomy. It gets complicated when you realize that everyone's tissue and bone structure in this area looks a little bit different. It's true for all body parts, but specifically for this piercing, what you're looking for is enough tissue on top of your bone structure there. So let's look at a diagram that I drew. So here's our piercing client, right? They came in for an eyebrow piercing, and this is what their anatomy looks like. What I'm looking for is enough tissue overlaying the skull bone that is sitting over the eye socket. This brow bone right here needs enough cushion. So if I put a curved barbell here, it does not touch the bone. These look terrible. These are terrible bar ends, but it's whatever. You see how the bar sticks out on each side? Now, if we were to use, theoretically, a straight barbell, right? Something like that, you would have not the best angle on this tissue. It might reject or it might grow bumps over here. That's why we use that curved barbell. Here's our second client. This client wants an eyebrow piercing, but I'm looking at the tissue on top of the bone, and there is not enough tissue to where if I put a curved barbell in here, it would touch the bone. Now that can put pressure on the skull and actually damage bone, or your body would reject it, which basically means this tissue right here gives way and the piercing just rips out. So how are you going to test and find out if someone has the anatomy or not? Because obviously we're not like looking into their skin. So what you would do is ask to see their side profile. So where you could see that little ridge. And you're going to, with a gloved hand, touch the tissue and see if there's enough cushion for the pushing. If there is not enough tissue here, if you're basically just touching bone the second you touch them here, they don't have the anatomy. However, if their brow bone is not easy to get in contact with when you're doing this, seems like a great situation, so you have the anatomy. So what do you do if you don't have the anatomy for the eyebrow piercing? Well, firstly, I don't recommend getting it. I'm not going to. However, with informed consent, it's out of my hands. I've given you the tools to understand what you want to do to your body, and what you do with those tools is out of my hands now. So you do you, boo. I can also offer alternatives to the piercing. For example, horizontal surface bars on top or under the eyebrow are kind of common in this case. Now, they're not less prone to rejection than a regular eyebrow piercing if you don't have the anatomy for an eyebrow piercing. However, if you don't have the anatomy for an eyebrow piercing and it's got like a high rejection risk, what's the difference at that point? Like, do what you want. Something I also recommend looking into is different parts of the eyebrow. I, in my personal professional experience, have noticed that people tend to have less eyebrow tissue towards the end than they do towards the middle and the front of their brow. So if you go on Pinterest and you look up clown eyes piercings, you'll see like 2 sets of, or not 2 sets, just a set of eyebrow piercings kind of towards the middle or front of the eyebrows, and it kind of gives you like a clown eye effect. I find that those stick better because there's more tissue in that area, and they're picking up in popularity, so they don't look so rare. Like, you'll start to see people actually having this piercing now. So I would give that a try. I think they're also really cute, so give it a taste. That's all I got for this one. If I left out anything, leave it in the comments. I'd love to have a little discourse, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!